As always, Secretary Vilsack is incredibly inspirational, and we appreciate his comments and his leadership. It's my turn now to say thank you and to give a short summary. So first, I'll start with thanking the keynoters, the moderators, the discussants, and in particular, Secretary Vilsack, President Daniels, and Congressman Fortenberry. Could put president in front of any one of those people's names, I think, in different ways. But their comments were really helpful and constructive. We want to thank the funders for the Chicago Council's symposium, our lead sponsors, Abbott and Cargill, our supporting sponsor, DuPont. We appreciate the support of the next generation sponsors, who are Land O'Lakes and RTI International. And we're always grateful for the generous support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We had many civil society partners. They donated their guidance and their resources, and there are many representatives here, and we thank you all very much. We again thank the new generation people for their commitment and for joining us. There are many staff of the Chicago Council who made this happen, and so bear with me while I read you their names, and then after that I would ask if we could applaud them and all the others that I have mentioned. The President, Ivo Daldler, Elizabeth Baker, Ashley Black, Margaret Black, Natasha Brown, Marjorie Burdetsky, Matt Burdetsky, Grace Burton, Marcus Glassman, Melanie Hannon, Stephanie Hines, Louise Iverson, Megan Keefe, Laura Lucas Magnuson, Megan Lynch, Elizabeth Marquardt, Matt McGuire, Lisa Moon, Andy Morimoto, Rachel Murphy, Julia Poshakovich, Tria Raimundo, Carol Sciula, Mignon Sanuta, Lauren Schuler, Sam Skinner, Ian Whitaker, January Zell. Thank you all very, very much. And thanks to all of you who are here still at this conference, either in person or watching on the web feed. Congressman Fortenberry was one of our opening speakers, and he talked about dos caminos, poverty and despair, and hope and opportunity. We've talked about in this conference the massive successes in the growth of the middle class, part of the hope and opportunity. The example told us was that China and India, for instance, are growing more than 5 times faster than Europe and North America has, and from a higher base. We still are reminded, though, that there are more than 800 million people who are desperately hungry every day. We've been told now that we have to think differently about all of these people, and we have to think differently about the world in front of us, because agriculture, as one speaker said, has too often focused on filling people, not nourishing people. And that our challenge now is to get the right food to the right people at the right time. We heard about 1,000 days. We heard from Roger. We know from the 1,000-Day Advocacy Group how important that population is. But we talked today also about how important nutrition is to everyone. And this is part of the poverty and despair. We learned about non-communicable diseases and how important diet is to try to decrease the amount of non-communicable diseases, which are impacting the whole world in terms of a high cost of productivity and in decreased longevity and in healthcare costs. We heard about the big increase in diabetes, for instance, around the world, and about the 200 million undernourished children worldwide, which Patrick Webb told us equals 10 times the amount of children in the United States. We learned that by 2050, half the people in the world will be overweight. And we learned that even now, a third of the children are stunted. We learned that violence, whether it's in Mali or Uganda or Chicago, is getting in the way of adequate nutrition. And we learned that we have the challenge of making sure we have enough water in the world 1 calorie equals 1 liter of water is still reverberating. And then we discussed the fact that the scandal is hidden hunger and malnutrition, under and over nutrition. The United States, Dr. Hyman told us, has one of the worst diets in the world, and we're exporting it. On the other hand, we heard about hope and opportunity. The fact that 1 centimeter in a person's height is going to make 2.5 times earnings income positive difference. We heard that every year of education is going to make a significant positive difference in income. We heard that right now, fortifying staple foods with micronutrients reaches over 900 million people every day. And we heard that smallholder farmers are really the key to so much of this, as long as we don't expect for smallholder farmers, women especially, to be superheroes. So then what can we do? Well, we have many different ideas, but I think the most important concept that was discussed was we need new models. We can talk about a lot of different things, but we have talked about some of the same things as well. And if we're going to be able to feed people in the way just described today in the future, we have to think about different models and different ways to do it. As our colleague from Germany said, business as usual will not get us there. More private sector innovation has been happening all around the world, but as the GAIN representative said, much more is needed. Research, the report tells us, and we heard during the day, is absolutely critical, especially on crops that be helpful in local communities. Linda Way told us that orphan crops are often the same as women's crops, which may be a reason why they don't have the investment that some of the commodity crops do. Let's shift some of that research to be working on these crops as well. We learned that the U.S. government strategy has been very important, but needs to be codified in law, and it needs to be a long-term commitment on the part of the U.S. and other donor countries around the world. We learned that we need a new generation of leaders, not just the 24 wonderful ones that are here, but throughout the world. We need to invest more in them, more in new product development, and we saw a great example of the orange flesh sweet potatoes. We learned that we need to change practice and culture, sometimes while respecting culture most of the time. Again, we heard the example of the chicken and who eats what, and the fact that we have to be sure that everyone has a chance to have adequate nutrition, everyone in the family. We learned that sometimes it's hard to change practice, but maybe it's not so hard to produce a different kind of food that's more helpful. And then there was the suggestion that we have rainbow revolution, more eggs, meat, milk, legumes, vegetables. And agriculture is culture. We need to invest more in youth and women. We always talk about women and girls at the center, but we're still always talking about it. We have to be sure our actions show it. And then critically important is that we have to integrate. All of our ideas here are talking about how nutrition is everybody's concern, and it should be everybody's business. But as someone said, there's no ministry of nutrition, but there's a ministry of health, and there's a ministry of agriculture, and sometimes they have totally different words and languages, and we have to meld them together. But we also have to meld our policies together. Everybody wants to reach women, everybody wants to reach mothers, everybody wants to reach adolescent girls, everybody wants to reach children. How can we be sure that there are integrated programs from the ground up with input from the individuals that we're hoping to help, and make sure that there are comprehensive mechanisms to support their efforts? As someone said, our future challenge is not just to feed the world, it is to help grow the world. And I don't think there's a better way to say this than Roger Thoreau said. Maybe, Roger, this could be kind of like the Whatever I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten book. 1, eat your vegetables. 2, wash your hands. 3, go to school. Which brings me back to Congressman Fortenberry, who said, "I never thought farming would be so cool." Thank you, and goodbye.